Karin Slaughter from Atlanta, USA. Please welcome her. How did you become a crime writer in the first place?
I sort of fell into it. When I was growing up in Atlanta, I actually lived about 30 minutes away from Atlanta, but the Atlanta child murders were happening. And around 25 young African-American boys were murdered by a serial killer. And this was a very scary thing, even though I was a little white girl living in the suburbs. It changed my life. All the commercials on television were saying, do you know where your children are? And our parents were very nervous about us being outside. And it went from me being the kind of child who could ride my bike until the sun went down to having to check in with my parents. And so I became very conscious of crime at a young age, and it made me want to know why people commit crimes. I mean, that's really the focus of my work. I never want someone to read one of my books and at the end of it, the reason the person did something is because they're a bad person, because it's much more complicated than that.
You have written Crown County series where there are translated 6 books into Finnish now, and just now we have out this Triptych, which starts a new series where there is a main character called Will Trent. Can you tell us about Will?
Well, Will was raised in a children's home, so I went from writing about Grant County, where everyone has very complicated family relationships. Sarah's very close to her family. She has the sort of family everyone wants unless they actually have it, and then they think it's a little overbearing. Jeffrey has his mother in his life. She's not very supportive, and Lena, of course, has her uncle who's an ex-drug addict, and they have a lot of issues around that. But with Will, I thought it would be a great challenge to have someone who didn't have a family, but who sought in his life to create his own family. So he's with the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, and the GBI is to Georgia what the FBI is to the country. So Will can go anywhere in the state of Georgia to solve crimes. This was actually, when I was writing Grant County, after a while, I thought, why are people living here? Because all these pedophiles and murderers and rapists, you would think that people would just leave the city. And so for Will, he can go to different towns in Georgia, and I can spread out the carnage that way. He's also dyslexic, so he doesn't read very well. He reads on the level of maybe a second grader, so that would be 8 years old. Yes, 6 to 7 years old. So he has this disorder that keeps him from reading. And a lot of authors tend to write about things that they want to see in society, such as people who love to read. Usually if someone is a bad guy, they don't read. And I thought it would be interesting to write about someone who couldn't read and who was a detective and had to find ways around not being able to read.
Here in Triptych, you make criticism towards the society in America in many ways. Do you want to change the world with your books? Do you want it to make it better, and do you think it is possible?
I wish it was possible, because I would write about everybody just being nice, if I thought I had that much influence. I think it's important in society to question how your government works and how things are working in your community. To me, that's the most patriotic thing you can do. And I do love America. I mean, I'm very proud of being from the southern states, and I would not want to live anywhere else in the world, especially since I see what your weather is like now. But there are problems, and I think asking these questions and talking about them is a good way to make people aware, because, I mean, why would you know how pedophiles are treated unless it's something that came across your path? And so in that regard, I think it's important to talk about issues. I think also as a woman, I love reading Lisa Marklin, Karen Fossum, Denise Mina, Mo Hader. These women are writing about women's issues from a woman's point of view. And let's face it, crime fiction generally talks about crime against women. So I think that what we bring to our books is a more visceral, psychological reaction to this violence. And I think that we try to be very careful when we write about these things to show that there are very lingering effects from this kind of violence.
Finnish readers, thank you so much for reading, and I hope that you're looking forward to the new series with Will Trent, and it's combined with Grant County, so you need to start paying attention.